Hello Blazers, welcome to episode 5 of UAB Green and Told, where we have conversations with members of the UAB family. I'm Greg Berry, Assistant Director in the Office of Alumni Affairs. On this episode of Green and Told, we go inside the kitchen with Jan Potter, owner of Dreamcakes Bakery and a 1978 graduate of UAB. The Queen of Birmingham cupcakes will share just how it all began for her.
When you bake something for someone and give it to them, it was like, wow, I can really make people happy.
But looking back, Jan says there's one thing she wishes she would have done differently.
There's so much more to it than, mixing up batter and baking it. It's a whole different thing.
UAB has grown since Jan graduated, but without UAB, there may not have been any Dreamcakes success.
They had a program that was actually a really good fit for me.
A successful bakery, a popular food truck, and a new cafe. Each are key ingredients that have led to Jan Potter's success. Growing up in Hoover, Alabama, Jan admits her love of baking started early. In fact, it began with a toy, sugar, and eggs.
My sister got an easy bake oven for Christmas. To like a 5-year-old, you took the little bitty box and you had a little bitty pan and you put it inside, one side of the oven and out, it's goo basically. And then out the other side comes cake. And at that age, I really thought it was like magic. And it just continued to be magic for me. And it's like all I've ever wanted to do. And it still is all I want to do. I mean, I'm not going to say how many years later, but obviously a long time, I'm still not tired of it. I still enjoy it. And it's just always rewarding. I think it's the combination of creating something from really raw ingredients, like, simple, very simple ingredients like sugar and eggs and butter and flour, and what combination you put them together in, and they come out as something really wonderful. And then I also learned when I was little that when you bake something for someone and give it to them, it's like the joy that you see in their face when you give it to them. So it was like, wow, I can really make people happy with this. So it was just like, it's just a bonus. Like, okay, I really enjoy doing this and it really makes people happy.
At what point did you kind of realize, you know what, UAB is the place I want to be?
Well, I started out at Alabama, and I went there for a year, and I am actually an introvert, and so, and a real homebody, and Alabama was great. It was a great learning experience, but it just probably wasn't the right fit for me as far as education goes. I mean, you can, get a great education there. And then I came home and I thought, I really want to go to UAB. I lived at home and they had a program that was actually a really good fit for me at the time. It was health sciences.
Okay.
And it was a really small classroom with, we had one instructor. And it was absolutely perfect for me. It was just a great learning environment. I liked the small classroom. It was a new program back then, and I think I was in like the first class. And it was for an associate's degree, and I loved every minute. I mean, I could not wait to go to school.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where I was, really floundering in Alabama, and then at UAB, I just really was excited to get up and go to school every day.
You go from a 5-year-old with an easy bake oven that belongs to your sister,
yes,
to UAB, and you graduate and you go to work for UAB Hospital.
It was definitely experience. I worked in it sounds so different, and it was so different from what I do now, but I started out at on the oral cancer patient floor.
Okay.
And I worked with, a dietitian. We kind of worked as a team. And I got to visit patients every single day because the good part about that job was when you're working with patients with that serious of a condition, we were just trying to feed them anything that they could possibly eat. And so you really got to know them. Like, I would spend a lot of time, I would go into their room and we'd talk about, what they could eat, because, that's a serious challenge. And then, what they wanted to eat. And a lot of times those didn't, pair well. We wanted them to have a really high calorie, kind of sweet diet, and they were, wanting something usually savory. It's really hard to give them a lot of calories with that. So I loved every minute of that. And then from that, I moved to the kidney dialysis and transplant floor. I would sit at a desk really most of the day, trying to calculate, because if you're have kidney failure or waiting for a kidney, you have to really measure everything, like every drop of liquid, every gram of potassium or sodium or protein, anything that your kidney has to filter and do all that kind of thing. They had to be really close. So it was like a math quiz every day, trying to figure out, okay, this person has this many grams of this, and this is what they've chosen that they, on their menu that they want, and trying to make that work. And so I did that for, a long while. And then after a while, I thought, I really kind of want to do something more creative with food. And so I left there, and I started working for Southern Living magazine. I worked in their test kitchen, which was really such a joy. But I will say that, my UAB degree opened a lot of doors for me, and it wasn't necessarily like a culinary degree. But because of all the experience that I had, it really did open a lot of doors for me that I don't think, it gave me credibility, obviously. And then my passion for baking and all that was still going on, behind the scenes. And so it just worked out to be just like a really, really great thing for me. I just don't regret it at all. I just can't say enough good things about it. It was just perfect for me.
You spent about 15 years at Southern Living as well as Cooking Light.
Yes.
So how did the UAB experience, the UAB background that you got, help you in those roles there?
When we're testing recipes, everything has to be really precise, because you're wanting to develop a recipe that somebody else can reproduce at home. So all the measurements have to be exact, all the temperatures and all that have to be exact. So all the precision, of things that I was trying to do at UAB really actually translated really well into like recipe development and making sure that things, came out the way they were supposed to. Because we did, a lot of that. We did a lot of meal planning when we were in class. Like developing recipes was a big part of my job at Southern Living. So developing recipes, I can remember days when I worked at the hospital going down to that humongous kitchen, at University Hospital, and it was enormous. But like pulling stuff and like actually mixing up things down there that I thought, my patient might enjoy this. I would pull like Ensure and cream and just things that I knew that were real high calorie, and just play around with things there to try to get, my patient to be able to eat something. So that, it kind of translated from that, developing recipes there into an enormous kitchen into just like a, small setting, taking, similar ingredients really, and coming up with, a recipe that people at home would enjoy.
Kind of like a scientist.
Yeah, it is. And there's a lot of science in food, especially in baking. It's very scientific. If you're making soup and things like that, you can throw whatever in there and it'll probably come out good. But in baking, you have to, weigh and measure and balance, and, it like the least little thing can throw something off.
Soon, Jan's hobby of baking cakes turned into a new business. After this short message from the UAB National Alumni Society, hear how she made that transition.
The UAB National Alumni Society is hitting the road. Alumni are invited to a special regional reception in Atlanta at St. Cecilia. Join us on November 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Hear from Dr. Jim McClintock, world-renowned researcher and endowed professor of polar and marine biology. He'll speak on the dramatic effects of climate change in Antarctica. To RSVP, visit alumni.uab.edu/Atlanta.
While she was working for the magazines, Jan started baking cakes on the side. With children at home, she wanted to make extravagant birthday cakes for them, something that was uncommon 30 years ago. She took classes on cake decorating, taught a few, and then the side business grew to wedding cakes. And before you know it, she was working 7 days a week.
My kids were small, and so I really wanted to do decorate cakes for them for their birthday, just because back in the day there were hardly any places to get a decorated cake. And grocery stores, even back then, we're talking like over 30 years ago, didn't have the choices like you have today, where you can get a decorated cake. And so that just evolved into like doing wedding cakes and mostly cakes for friends and things like that. But finally came to the point where it's like I was working like 7 days a week. I would work all week long, in the test kitchens, and then I would, bake on Fridays and Saturdays for wedding cakes or cakes. And so I was exhausted, and I finally just said, okay, I've got to choose one or the other. I can't keep this up. And so I chose to, leave and do my own business, Dreamcakes. And so I really didn't expect to have like a retail store like I do. Okay. I rented a tiny little kitchen over in Cahaba Heights. It was like 400 square feet. I mean, it was tiny. And but it did have all the equipment in it, so I didn't have to buy anything. They had a big commercial oven and a mixer, and then I had all the cake pans and stuff. And so I started there, and I thought, okay, this will get this out of my house. I can meet with brides here, and bake everything here, and just go home and not have all this mess at home. And so within 6 months, we had outgrown it. My daughter came and helped me. We had interns. Anybody I could rope into coming over there and helping me work. And but seriously, within 6 months, we could not do any more out of that little bitty kitchen. And so I found a place where we are now in Homewood. Mm-hmm. And we've been there for 11 years, which just seems crazy to me.
How surprised were you in the success that you had? Because it only took you 6 months to outgrow that little bitty kitchen.
Yes, it just all seemed so surreal. Things just kept happening. A friend of mine found that little store and said, because I had been looking for a really long time, and then we outgrew it. And just the time that I had decided, we've got to get a bigger place, Bruno's, the biggest grocery store chain in Birmingham, was, going out of business. Yeah. All of their equipment was for sale. And it was like for pennies on the dollar. And I had a credit card. Mm-hmm. And I have since come to find out that most women entrepreneurs, that's how they get started. They have a credit card, they have a great idea, and that's how they do it. So I was able to buy probably top of the line equipment that I never, ever in a million years would have been able to buy, on my own. And so I outfitted that entire kitchen with that. I moved in the little store in Cahaba Heights in November of 2009, and then we moved in August of 2010 into the store in Homewood. That's how quick that happened. And pretty soon, we just never slowed down. It was just always so busy, and we're still so busy. We were the second food truck in Birmingham. So I'm really proud of this part. I had to pioneer the way with the health department, which they were not interested in food trucks at that time. That was 10 years ago. And they didn't know what to do with me and what we were trying to do. And So I worked really closely with them to try to like get some guidelines and, and that kind of thing. So it was interesting. That was an interesting part. So it's just like been one thing after another after another, but yeah, so it's just been a great journey.
You blazed a lot of paths in getting to where you're at now.
Yeah.
When did you realize you had something special?
When they called and asked me to do a cookbook, for them to ask me to do that, and it was all the recipes, from our store, and I actually got to do the food styling on it, so that was a lot of fun. I was really glad I got to do that. But yeah, it's even now, like, I guess looking back is very satisfying.
Yeah.
To see how that little journey starting out, and it's really just like one step at a time, and building and building and building, and it's amazing to look back and see, and we're still going strong.
Yeah.
So today in Birmingham is a food city. It's tough. Like, there's a lot of choices out there, so you really have to bring your A game every single day, and you have to hustle, and you have to do social media. So business has really changed a whole lot since, even since I started.
Yeah. Many of the things she learned at UAB have worked their way into Jan's world today. However, there's one thing, a missing piece, that she wishes she would have done.
I wish so much that I had taken some business classes at UAB. I feel like that is the missing part for me, because I struggled with that. I made a lot of mistakes early on, but to me, failure is really important, because you never know what you are bad at or what you need help with. So when you fail, it's like, man, I really need help with that. And so so then you seek that out. And what I learned from my degree was really good as far as the food part went, and it opened a lot of doors for me, and continues to still to this day. But I really wish I'd have taken some business classes. But hindsight's 2020. Looking, and I tell people that now when we have interns or whatever, it's like, take a business class for sure. Because if you want to run a business of any kind, it's one thing to have a good skill and something that you can do, but you really have to know how to do a million other things. Like, people say, oh, it's my dream to own a bakery. It's like, really?
Yeah.
There's so much more to it than, mixing up batter and baking it. It's a whole different thing.
How do you stay connected now to UAB?
Well, we bring our truck down here. We try to, come to games when we can. We support, like, the Blazers, and, try to be involved in everything we can. We donate to, everything we possibly can, because we love, UAB is just like the heartbeat, of Birmingham, really, for the state. I think it's the biggest employer in the state. So
growing up in Birmingham, you're still in the area.
Yeah.
How have you seen UAB, the campus, change over the years?
Oh my gosh, I was hoping you'd ask me that, because I was just thinking back to the days when I would come to class. And some of the buildings are still the same. Of course, they're not hardly back. That was, gosh, I'm afraid to say, I guess that was 40 years ago. So, it has really grown. Like, there was, I don't even know if there was a student center back then. I do remember running on the track where the, I don't even know what's there now. The old track, there was like a gym there.
Okay.
And all that. But yeah, just, walking to class. The classes were small, but all of my teachers were excellent. But yeah, it was very small, very intimate. It was probably a quarter of the size of it is, now. Like, I remember we would walk from the building we were in, the Health and Allied Sciences. I don't know if it's still in that same building or not. And then just, we could walk a couple of blocks and be down at the hospital, or, that kind of thing. But I can remember, too, when I started, working at the hospital, parking on the street at like 5 o'clock in the morning, trying to find a parking place. And now there's like, big parking lots and things like that. So it has really changed a lot in 40 years and grown, and just is doing so, so good. I'm so proud.
In 1978, Jan Potter graduated from UAB's School of Allied Health, which has since become the School of Health Professions. She has long since moved past that easy bake oven she played with as a 5-year-old. Now, Dreamcakes boasts more than 100 whimsical flavors of cupcakes, from the ever-popular wedding cake to Grapeco, caramel sea salt mocha, and Cahaba Lily, each having its own identity. You can even, at times, find blazer cupcakes, which leads me to ask, just what does it mean to be a blazer?
Like when I say, my degree is from UAB, people immediately know, what that is and what my background is, and I'm just really proud of it. I'll just be a blazer till I die.
Want to learn more about Jan and Dreamcakes or check out another episode of Green and Told? Head to our podcast page at alumni.uab.edu/Green and Told. Don't miss an episode of Green and Told. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen in. Have a question for me or perhaps a future idea for a blazer conversation? Email me at greenandtold@uab.edu. And be sure to find us on Facebook and Twitter at UAB Alumni and Instagram at UAB_alumni. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers!